Hey guys, it's Allie. Welcome back to Infertile AF, the podcast. This is episode 48 called Maggie. So today's episode is sponsored by Prove, the first 5-minute at-home progesterone test to confirm ovulation. Progesterone is the hormone released after ovulation, and it needs to be elevated high enough for long enough to confirm successful ovulation. Problems with ovulation can make it difficult to get pregnant, but with Prove, you can figure out if you are ovulating successfully right from your very own home. This critical information can change the game when it comes to trying to conceive. What I love most about Prove is that it was invented by Amy Beckley, a PhD scientist and infertility warrior whose journey lasted 3 long years and included 7 miscarriages. She suspected that she was having trouble ovulating properly in her own journey, and lo and behold, she was right. She got a progesterone supplement to help and successfully conceived just a couple of cycles later. Her progesterone miracle is now 6 years old. So you guys know I love female-founded companies, and you know I love products that can truly help you go through this awful infertility road. So check out Prove. The best part is that they're giving Infertile AF listeners a special discount code. Go to provetest.com, enter the code InfertileAF20, and you'll get 20% off your very first order. Thanks, Prove. On this episode, I'm partnering with Extend Fertility, which was founded on the premise that democratizing egg freezing could ultimately change the fertility industry and deliver better results. Their co-founder, Dr. Joshua Klein, who is near and dear to my heart because he was actually my doctor, and you may have heard me interview him in episode 36 of this podcast, is a brilliant, supportive, and overall awesome doctor. And he's a bit of a disruptor because when he observed that IVF's success rate was low for women over 40 and its high cost was disappointing for doctors and patients alike, he took matters into his own hands. He saw the opportunity to help women think more proactively about their fertility, and he founded Extend Fertility, which began offering egg freezing at 40% below the national average. By 2017, they were the largest egg freezing practice in the nation, and today they've expanded to offer a full range of infertility services, including IVF, in a small practice environment that's more personal, higher quality, and more data-driven. So to make an appointment with Extend or find out more, go to extendfertility.com and make sure to tell them that Infertile AF sent you. Thanks. So today's story is absolutely incredible. Maggie is a mom to 2 miracle babies born 30 days apart. She had Sam via surrogate, and then almost exactly a month later, she had Charlie via a surprise pregnancy after years of infertility struggles. So today she's going to tell us all about her story, how it all happened, and how she's raising the boys basically as twins. So I want to thank Maggie so much. This is a really good, uplifting story. She also has an awesome Instagram, Bean, Biscuit, Bean and Biscuit, which is what they call their boys. So without further ado, this is Maggie's infertility story. So hi, Maggie. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm so good. Thank you so much for taking the time. I can't wait to hear your story. I'm just going to have you kind of talk us through the whole thing. You have a very interesting story, and I'm just going to let you tell us what's the situation at home right now.
Okay. Well, the situation at home right now is that I have 2 baby boys. One is going to be 6 months on the 30th, and the other is going to be 5 months on the 30th.
Okay. So tell me how this all happened. And it's so amazing.
So it was pretty crazy. Still, sometimes I'm like, I can't believe this is my life. But we just tried to have a family pretty much like how everybody else, you get married and then you're married for a little while and you're like, okay, time to start trying for kids. So we started trying probably like a year after we got married, and we got married in 2015. And I bought like the ovulation sticks, and I had an app that was tracking my cycle. So I was like serious about I wanted to be pregnant. Like I would have gotten pregnant before we got married, but that's frowned upon sometimes. So
Right. So you knew right out of the gate you wanted to have
I was
kids and you
basically
were going to
just waiting for my husband to get on board. So I started right out of the gate serious about it. So,
okay. And how old were you at that point?
I think I was 28.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I was 28, maybe 29. So I wanted to have my kids done by the time I was 30. I wanted to, and I wanted them close together. So I was like, we better get going, So we started, and we'd had everything timed up, and then, you take the pregnancy test, and I always took them like the day that you could. So a lot of times when they were negative, I thought like, oh, I just took it too early. Like, so I would take like 100 tests. And then after probably like, I don't know, like 9 months, maybe I went to my OB, and I knew that it could take like 6 to 12 months. So I was trying not to be crazy and like go in after like the third month. So I waited until like 9 months, I think. And she like kind of laughed at me. I think she like probably gets this all the time from impatient people, like thinking something's wrong when they really just aren't giving it enough time. And so she was like, we can do some preliminary testing and stuff if you want, but really I would just keep doing what you're doing. You're still young. And like, I didn't have anything that we knew of at the time, that would prevent me from getting pregnant. So,
did you feel like she kind of blew you off, or was that okay?
I like both, because I assumed that she just probably got it all the time, but also I was like, 9 months is a long time, and I'm 28, like I'm almost 30. And even though like now that I know in the fertility world, like that's really not that old, but I felt like I was too close to 30.
And did you have a feeling that maybe something was off? Because I've talked to people before that you just kind of know sometimes if like there's something amiss like in your body.
I think like, that's funny you should say that. No one's ever asked me that before, but I feel like before we even started trying, I had the thought like, if any of my friends are going to have to do IVF, I bet it's going to be me. Like I don't know why I thought that. Like I really had no reason to think that. But it was just like kind of a feeling. And after like a couple months of trying, I started being like, maybe something is wrong. And I've always had like really painful periods, and they've always been like a lot worse than anybody I ever knew. So I was like, maybe there's something to be said for that.
Did you ever think endometriosis or anything like that?
Yeah, I did, which I later got tested for all of that and didn't have any of it. Through the whole process, like I didn't feel any more stressed than I normally do. Like, yeah, during IVF cycles, and like if I had to go do a baby shower or something like that, like it was a little more stressful, but like my daily life and attitude, like I wasn't like a stressed out person. So I didn't think like that it was a mind body type thing, but sometimes your body just, even if you don't think you're stressed, like it still does what it's going to do. So that's probably kind of what played a role in my story. But anyways, so at that time when I went to see my doctor, like she did kind of blow me off. She did the testing for me though, and she suggested that I try Clomid.
Okay.
So I did that. I did like the blood test. Nothing was amiss. And my husband did like the preliminary sperm test, and everything was good there. And then I also did an HSG test at that time, and everything was fine there. So I was like, okay, maybe I just need like this little extra boost in my ovulation. Like, so we did that for 3 months, and then nothing. So then she referred me to a fertility clinic after that.
Okay.
So then when I went there, I did like some more in-depth testing, like some genetic screens and that kind of thing. And then we talked about whether we should do IUI or IVF. And I like had heard of some of my friends had done IUI before, or like not close friends, but just like people that I had knew that had tried it before. And I didn't know anybody that it worked for. I knew of probably like 5 people that had done IUI, and like none of them had worked for them. So I kind of wasn't like excited about doing that, but we wanted to just like try with like a least expensive, least invasive type of try, just because all the testing was coming back that everything was fine. So,
right. And did you guys have, if you don't mind me asking, you don't have to say, but was insurance covering any of it, or was it like out of pocket? Okay.
No.
Yeah.
It wasn't covering anything. So we decided to just go that route. And then, so that didn't work, obviously. And I was like, I would rather just like, if we're going to be spending all this money, like I'd rather do it on something that's like a more surefire bet instead of like wasting our money on something that's like basically the same as having sex. It's just timed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you did one round of IUI? Okay.
Yep. And so then we just went straight into IVF. And at the first clinic that I was at, she didn't recommend us doing the PGS testing. And I think that was just because I was under 30 and I didn't have any like history of any chromosomal abnormalities. So, and she also, you know, was like, anytime we mess with the embryos, it like kind of compromises like the integrity of the embryo. And if we don't have to mess with them, we don't want to. And that kind of made sense to me. So we bypassed that at the time.
How was just backing up a little bit, how were like the drugs and the retrieval and all that for you that first round?
It was kind of what I expected. And like, I kind of was just so excited to be like on the road to starting our family that I really didn't care about all the injections. It was kind of scary at first, but like you really don't feel them. Like you kind of are bruised and that kind of thing after. It sucks having to do them all the time, but like it wasn't that bad. And emotionally, like the hormones and stuff, like they didn't really affect me as much as I like was thinking they would.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. So it wasn't too terrible all in all with the injections and stuff. I will say like the egg retrieval, like just leading up to it, it was so uncomfortable. Like it felt like I had like 50 golf balls in my uterus. And so that was like terrible.
Did you end up with a lot of eggs?
Yeah. My first egg retrieval, I think I had like 28 or something like that. So I had a lot of eggs, and then I don't remember all the numbers going into like ICSI and then the 3 days and then whatever, but we ended up with 12 embryos. Okay. Which at my clinic was like a ton of embryos.
Yeah, that's high.
So we were like super excited. They did like a visual grading system on them, and they were all like supposedly really good embryos too. So I was just super excited.
It's so funny because they're like, they're beautiful. And you're like looking at these pictures and you're like, I have no idea, but okay, I'll take your word for it.
And of course I Googled like, what does a good embryo look like? And they all look different. I'm like, I don't look like that. But anyway, so the first transfer, we only put one in and it didn't take. So then the second transfer, we decided that we would put 2 in just to like make our odds a little bit better. And then that one didn't take.
How long was it between the first and the second?
I just kind of wanted to like get right into it. So I didn't wait, but my clinic did batch transfers. So like they do everybody in the same week or whatever. So like if your cycle, if you miss it or whatever, you have to like wait a whole month, and they put you on medication to like dictate what time. Okay. Have you ever heard of that before?
I haven't heard of that. I've heard of batch testing, but I haven't heard of batch transfers. It's interesting.
Okay. Yeah, it was terrible.
Because you had to wait?
Yeah, because you had to wait. And I'm not patient at all. So
yeah, I think that's one of the hardest parts about this whole infertility thing in general is just So much waiting.
So much waiting.
And I'm
like,
impatient too by nature.
Yeah.
So it's just so tough.
And the waiting is like a whole month or sometimes even like 6 weeks. So
Right.
like, it's not even quick waiting. It's
Right.
it's long.
Mm-hmm.
So then we did our third transfer and I put 2 in that time too. So we've now used 5 embryos
Mm-hmm.
and that one didn't take either.
Oh my God. How are you feeling? This must have been super emotional for you.
Yeah. At this point, I was like, because like when the first one didn't take, I was like, okay, well, it works at my clinic. They said like 65% of the time. So I was like, that's like 50-50 pretty much. So
Mm-hmm.
if it doesn't work the first time, it's probably going to work the second time.
Right.
So then it didn't work the second time. And so then I was kind of like, okay, well, it's definitely going to work this time. And we're putting in 2. And like,
Mm-hmm.
I just was sure it was going to work the third time.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it didn't, I was kind of like, oh my God, like, is something wrong with me? Like, what, like, is there anything else we can do? Can we tweak some medicine? Like, these are all the things that were going through my mind.
Right.
My doctor called to like tell me that that it didn't work. And I was kind of expecting her to like come to me with all these things like, let's tweak this, let's do this procedure, or let's whatever. And she kind of was just like, I don't know what's going on. Like I talked to the other doctor at the practice and he really doesn't like, can't see any like reason why this isn't working either. And I just was like, okay.
That's so tough because you're like, you're the doctor. You're supposed to know. What are the answers?
That's exactly how I felt. Or at least like tell me like, well, we have all these other embryos. Like, let's just try again. I don't know. And so I didn't get any of that. So I kind of felt like she was giving up on me and I wasn't ready to, I was like, so what are you telling me? Like, I just need to stop trying or what? Like, it was a really weird conversation.
Yeah.
And so I guess, wait, sorry, let me backtrack.
Sure.
Before the third transfer, we did decide to do a laparoscopy to see if I had endometriosis. So we had already done that and I did not have any at that time. So I did that surgery and that was pretty bad. I don't know if you've ever done it.
I haven't had it myself, but I've heard that it's horrible.
Yeah, it's not.
It sounds so painful.
It was pretty painful and it just like the recovery. And then that was like another month. I had to wait a month to take the surgery and then a month to recover from it. So that was like kind of annoying. So we did do that. And then I also did like a mock transfer so that they could do like the uterus scratch to see what the exact like hour I needed to put the embryo in. So we had done that too.
Wow. So all in at this point, it's been what, about a year since you started trying or longer?
Well, I started IVF after naturally trying for a year. And then my first 3 transfers probably took close to a year too.
Okay. Wow.
So I'm probably like almost 2 years into it.
And meanwhile, I'm sure some of your friends are having babies with no problems.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Like all of them, like almost every single one of my friends. And I think I was like the second one to start trying. So I was just, it was frustrating. And then like my 2 very, very best friends, like they got pregnant at the same time.
Oh,
so it's like every time we would go to dinner, like nobody would get wine but me. And I was just like,
right. I would be like crying into my wine glass. Like,
yeah.
I don't understand.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I also like didn't talk to anybody about any of this. Like I was super private about it. Like I had told them that I was going to see a fertility doctor, but it was just really like, and I had told them when I did the IUI, and then when I had to tell them that it didn't work, like I was like, oh my God, I can't do this like every time.
It's exhausting.
It's exhausting. And like when people know like you have tests coming up and stuff, like they're wanting to know, like, are you pregnant? Are you not? Did it work? Did it not? And then, it's just, you have to have that conversation over and over. And so I just decided after that, like when I have good news to tell, I'll tell them. And until then, like, I'm just going to kind of keep this between like my husband and I. So
that makes sense.
Yeah. So they knew we were trying and struggling and they were super sensitive, like honestly amazing, like with the whole thing and like them being pregnant and having babies and all that. It was probably the best situation it could have been, even though inside I was like dying every day. But it was easier for me to do that than to like keep everybody updated every single time. Like,
yeah, it just adds another layer of like something you have to do or something you have to deal with. And I feel like it gets to be too much at a certain point.
Yeah, it definitely was better for me to just kind of keep it private. I'm sure for my friends, like not knowing for 2 years what was going on with my baby making was probably hard for them, but I was happy that they kind of just let me do my thing.
Mm-hmm.
But so back to my journey to these babies. After that had happened with that doctor, I decided that I wanted to just switch clinics. And so we transferred our embryos over to another clinic and got a new doctor. And he was actually like shocked that after the first time it didn't work, that we didn't test the embryos just to make sure that they were like normal and that we weren't putting in embryos that were likely not going to take anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So he wanted to start from scratch just so that he could like follow the embryos from start to finish and just like know exactly like how they were made and, you know, what their deal was like for their entire life, not just like having them transferred over from like another doctor and another lab.
Right.
Which made sense to me. So I did another egg retrieval. And at this new clinic, like they do everything on your time. So like there was no waiting or anything like that. Like everything kind of happened quickly at this new place. So I did another egg retrieval. We tested those embryos. And then I also tested my old ones at the same time.
Interesting.
And of my old embryos, 4 of them like didn't make it past the thaw. So I only had 2 left from that batch. And then my other embryos, I think I had 6. So I had 8 total.
Okay.
And they all came back genetically normal.
Okay.
Which my doctor was also surprised. He's like, I can't believe you had 100% normal embryos. Like that never really happens. And they were all like really high graded too. So he was really pumped and like had a really good feeling about everything. So then I was like super excited too. And then we did a transfer and we only put 1 in. Like at that clinic, if you test them and you know you're putting in a good embryo, they don't want to do 2 just because it's risky to carry 2 babies and all that.
Right.
So we got the call, the blood test, the pregnancy test, and it didn't work. I was just super bummed. I was like, God, something has to be wrong with me.
Right. Like what? It must have been so devastating because you're like, what's going on? Like this is supposed to be working and nobody can figure out why it's not.
Yes. It was
torture.
It was torture. I just didn't understand. And like nobody could tell me anything. And at this new clinic, there was like 6 other doctors there and like none of them really knew either. But my doctor was like, I'm still pretty like optimistic. Like let's tweak. He's like, he added in, it was like a blood thinner injection.
Okay.
And so we added that. I had never taken that before. So I'm like, at this point,
because that's supposed to help with implantation, right? I feel like I might have had that as well.
Yes. It's supposed to like help with like the blood flow to your uterus.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, but like before he had suggested that, like I was just so like in the dark place. Like I didn't even want to think about doing it again. I was mostly like, if I can't carry this baby, like maybe we should look into surrogacy. We have all these good embryos. And like, I was so like heartbroken at the thought of like not being able to like carry and deliver my own baby. But at the same time, I just wanted to be a mom more than like I cared about that.
Right.
And so I looked into it. My husband at that point was kind of like, that doesn't sound necessary, right? Like yet, like, let's just, we keep going down this road. And I was like, this isn't going to work. Like we've tried this 4 times. We've used like 6 embryos at this point. I was ready to just like throw in the towel. So I contacted a surrogacy agency just to get like the information and talk to her. And meanwhile, the doctor and my husband kind of talked me into like letting us try like one more time with this new injection.
Mhm.
And so I was like, okay, that's fine with me. But I made my husband promise me that if it didn't work this time, that we could call the surrogacy agency like that day.
Okay.
So he said that was fine. And I was like in communication with the agency. The whole time I was like, I'll probably be calling you like at the end of the month, like just have our paperwork on standby, whatever.
Mhm.
So we did the transfer. And then on the 10th day, I was waiting for like the negative phone call. And my doctor called and he was like, congratulations, you're pregnant.
Oh my
Yeah. I was like, what?
God.
I was about to walk into a meeting at work and I was like in shock. I was like bawling my eyes out. I was like,
Uh-huh.
I didn't believe him. I was like, are you sure?
Right. Because was this the first time you'd actually been pregnant?
Ever.
Wow.
Yeah. And
Wow.
like,
I just got the chills. Oh.
yeah. And I never took the home pregnancy test. I did the first time and they tell you not to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so upset when it was negative. So I never took another test after that. I just waited for the blood test.
Yeah. It's so hard to wait. But yeah, I was able to wait for mine too, but it's so hard.
Well, I had to like completely rid my house of pregnancy tests or I would have taken
Mm-hmm.
them. But yeah, it's really hard. And so I don't know. I felt the same. I always did. So I just was like, it's negative. I don't care. I'm calling the surrogacy people. So let's just get this over with. But then it was positive. So I just was like, I couldn't believe it. I called my husband. He like couldn't believe it. We both were just like crying on the phone. I was like, this sucks. We're doing this over the phone, but like I had to tell you. And so, anyways, we told our parents and we were just like so excited. And then we went back for like the subsequent blood testing and our numbers were getting bigger. They just like weren't getting as big as they were supposed to. So
Mm-hmm.
I went back like a couple more times until they started dropping. And then my doctor was like, well, it looks like your guys are miscarrying. And that was probably like a week after we found out we were pregnant. So it was like a week, maybe like a little bit longer because you have to wait like a couple days in between.
Right.
So I just was like so bummed and so upset. And like, I wanted to know like why that was happening because I had always thought that like you miscarried because something was wrong with your embryo.
Mm-hmm.
And we put in a great embryo. So I just was like, what happened to it? Like, why didn't it last? And he was like, honestly, I have no idea. Like, it should not have miscarried. I don't know what happened because I was still taking all the medicine and the progesterone and that blood thinner. Like, I was still taking all the medicine you take to support a pregnancy. So I just was like so bummed. And
Mm-hmm.
but like on the other hand, like I was so relieved to like know that it was possible for my body to get pregnant. Cause before that, I just thought I never would
Right.
know what that was like.
Yeah, I get it.
But at that time, I was like not mentally ready to like go through that again. Like I could not do another round and then have that happen again or even like not work again. Like I don't know how to explain it. I just was like over it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and my doctor kind of like also agreed with me. He's like, maybe we'll just do the surrogate. You can get one baby under your belt and then maybe that'll take the pressure off. And then like we can try IVF with you for any other babies you guys want because you do have all these embryos left. So like, why don't we just try that? And so my husband and I both were like, okay, that sounds like a good idea.
Okay.
So we called the agency and set up our meetings. They matched us with a surrogate and
Did it happen pretty quickly or what did it take a minute?
yes. So I miscarried in August and she was pregnant with our baby in November.
Wow. Okay. So you used obviously one of the embryos you already had.
Yeah.
Did they just
so
pick like
helped.
the most healthy one or whatever one looked the best?
Yeah. Yes. So I found out the genders and I actually had 7 boys and 1 girl.
Wow.
So I really it really wasn't like a choice of like, which one should we put in? Like they were like all boys. So, but I had them like rank them anyways from like best to worst. So we just like went down the line.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew they were putting a boy in her.
Okay.
And yeah, it took on the first try.
Wow.
And
So cool.
yeah, I honestly was like, she has 4 of her own children and she did a surrogacy one other time. So I was like, she's really good at being pregnant. I have a really good feeling about this, but they tell you like, it might not work on the first try or the second try. Like in our contract, we had to like say how many times we were willing to try and all of that.
Mm-hmm. With the same surrogate?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
did you form a relationship with her too? Or like how?
Yeah. Yes.
How did that go?
Yeah, she lived about an hour away from us. So I didn't see her except for at appointments, but we texted like almost every day, or at least like every Tuesday, which was like our week,
Mm-hmm.
our time every time we were one more week ahead.
Okay.
So we talked a lot and I really liked her. It was, and she really wanted like she really wanted the pregnancy to feel like it was mine. Like, so she like, I went to every single appointment and she told me every single time, like anything happened, like anytime she felt any certain way or anything, like she let me know.
I love that.
Yeah, it was like the best it could be in that situation. And they did a great job matching us up because some surrogates don't want to like, have that much contact, and some intended parents don't want, they just want you to like carry their baby and then have it. Like they don't.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm sure at a certain point, if you've been through so much, you're probably just like, let's just not deal with all the minutia and just like be in a good headspace. Some people might think that I would be like you, where I'd want to be like, text me every time it kicks.
Yes, I was. And I told and that was like part of the matching process. Like I was like, I already know I'm going to be nuts. So like it needs to be somebody who doesn't care if I text them like 100 times a day.
Right.
And I wasn't actually that crazy, but I just wanted her to be aware that I might be that crazy.
Right. You're like, I'm not really going to text you 100 times a day, but I might.
Yes. So, they did a really good job of matching us up with like same expectations. So
that's great. So pregnancy is going well. Can you talk a little bit more about just working with a surrogate? I'm sure there's people who are listening who maybe are considering it or they're on the fence. Is there anything that, made you kind of come to that decision more so than something else, or
to use one?
Yeah. I mean, I know you were at a point where it wasn't, you're kind of up against the wall, right? Like it wasn't happening. So, but if somebody has reservations, is there something you could tell them that maybe would make them feel better about doing it? Because I think,
I mean, I think like no matter what you hear or what, like no matter what, you could hear of like 100 great experiences, but you just really don't like know how you're going to feel until someone else is carrying your baby. It's honestly like the weirdest thing ever. And you just like, and it's kind of scary because you don't know how you're going to feel until you're doing it. And at that point, like if you freak out or if you like, have just anxiety or whatever, like there's really nothing you can do about it at that point. But on the other hand, you have a baby on the way. So you really don't care about anything except for that. So it's really scary. And like my biggest advice would be to go through an agency, because you do get paired with people who are like pre-vetted and screened, and there's like a 1,000,000-page contract and you put every single thing in it before the baby is transferred. And like you find some comfort in that, just knowing that like the other party is like legally bound to like respect your wishes. And it's a two-way street. So, like we couldn't put anything in there that she wasn't comfortable with, and she couldn't put anything in there that we weren't comfortable with. So it is, when you work with an agency, it just takes away all that extra awkwardness. And like, if, you kind of go through a third party too. So it's not as, it's more comfortable to get things the way you want them.
Yeah. It gives you peace of mind, I would imagine.
Definitely.
Too. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, it's like my sister, she's 5 years younger than me. And she was like, I'll do it for you, whatever. But, then I was like, well, I would never forgive myself if something happened to you, or if like you couldn't have your own kids or whatever. So it was just kind of nice, like using somebody that we didn't know already, who was like completely had like no dog in the fight, like just honestly doing it out of the goodness of her heart.
Right. That makes perfect sense. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah. So that was kind of like where I was going into all this with that frame of mind. And it worked out really well. Obviously, with any situation that's this sensitive, there's hurdles and ups and downs. And for the most part, like we had the most absolute amazing experience. And I would do it again.
Okay.
But, there's always just hormones, and it's just a sensitive situation, I guess. Right. So like, I don't want anyone to think that it's like rainbows and butterflies the whole entire time.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's definitely stuff and anxieties, and like you do have those moments where you feel like left out, or you just want to know what it feels like, but you can't, and you don't have that bond with your baby yet because like you're not carrying them, but you know everything about them and you can see them and stuff. It's just, I don't know. The whole time I was kind of like comparing myself to my husband. Like I just kept telling myself like, I'm just the dad.
Like, oh my gosh. I've never heard it described that way before. That's so good. That's so interesting.
They don't get to feel any of this until after the baby's born either. And like, they don't have any, usually that I know of, like all the dads I know are just as bonded with their baby as the moms. And so I just kept telling myself like, I'm just the dad.
Okay. Wow. I love that. That's so good. Okay.
Yeah.
So then what happened?
So then, like I said, she told us she was pregnant in November. Like it was like the day after Thanksgiving, I think. So like the very end of November. And then we went to Florida for Christmas, and I was supposed to start my period in Florida, and I never did. But I figured it was just because I was on vacation and like things were wonky or whatever. Like I was like, I'll probably just start when I get home. And then New Year's came and went, and my husband actually was like the one that asked me, hey, did you ever get your period? And I was like, no, actually I didn't. I forgot, because this was like the first time I didn't have to track my period or know like any of that stuff. I just like didn't care and like wasn't even thinking about it anymore. It was so wonderful. And he was like, well, do you want to take a pregnancy test? And I was like, no, haha. Like, I'm not pregnant. We've been through this. Like,
right. You're like, whatever. I've taken enough of those. On this road.
And he was like, well, let's just like take a test just to be sure. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I don't care. And like all the other times that when we had been trying naturally, like I would not get I'd be like a day or two late for my period, and then I would take the test, and then it would be negative, and then I would get my period like 5 minutes later. So I was like, I'm sure that I'll take this test, and then I'm going to get my period tonight or whatever. So I took the test, and it was not negative.
Oh my God. What went through your mind when you saw that?
Well, so I peed on a stick, and then I like laid it on the bed, and I went into the bathroom to change, and my husband was like coming up the stairs, like he knew I was taking it. And so we kind of like walked into the bedroom at the same time, and I saw the word pregnant on there, but I like was getting a little closer so I could like see the word not at the top.
Right.
And when I saw that it was pregnant, I just like gasped and like put my hands over my face, like, oh my God. And he was like, what does it say? And I just was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And he was like, so then he ran and looked, because I could not even say the words. And we both just looked at each other like, is that real? And then we were just like laughing and crying. And we were kind of like, and then also we were like, No.
Right.
So it was like 100 emotions at one time.
I'm sure.
So then I like got on my phone and like went to one of those due date calculators because I was like, when did this happen? Like, when is this baby coming?
Mm-hmm.
And the due date was exactly a month after our other due date.
Oh my God. That's
I know. I was
wild.
like, oh my God.
That's
Oh, and
wild.
just another funny tidbit I should let you know is that I always ovulated like 14 days after I started my period. And once we knew that that our surrogate was pregnant on like that 14th-ish day,
Mm-hmm.
we were joking around and my husband was like, should we try? And I was like, no. We were like, no, and like, we were like, well, no, we definitely should just not even risk it. So we like stayed away from each other for like a week. Like we
Oh
did.
my God.
Yeah. So that was the other weird thing. Like I have to assume that I just ovulate either before or after I thought that I do.
Okay.
'Cause,
Interesting.
yeah. So I definitely didn't think I was pregnant because I was like, we like avoided it. So
Right.
I don't know. I don't know when or how it happened,
It's
but
just one of those things where it's inexplicable, right? It's like,
yeah.
wow.
Yes.
Okay.
So then we called our parents and told them, and they were like nuts.
What did they say?
Um, my mom, like the first thing she said was like, I hope it's a girl. And his mom was like, she couldn't believe it. She like thought we were joking. I don't know.
Hmm.
It was kind of the reaction that
And then
everybody
did
had.
you told the surrogate, what did she say?
Yeah. So I didn't tell her until I had gone to the doctor just to like totally make sure.
Okay. Yeah, that's smart.
And she like wasn't surprised.
Really?
Yeah, I was like, she's like, well, you've been pregnant before and you were gonna like try again. And like I knew eventually you were gonna be pregnant. I just didn't think it would be this soon.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh my God, well, I didn't know this was gonna happen. Like
It's so wild.
crazy, I know. And I guess she's like in a lot of surrogate like groups
Mm-hmm.
and like this 1 month apart like does not happen commonly, but I think like a lot of intended parents do end up getting pregnant after they have a baby with surrogate.
I
It
mean,
is
it's all the
awesome.
things, right? It's like
Yeah.
scary, it's awesome, it's crazy, it's unbelievable, I'm
Yes.
sure.
It was super crazy. So then I went to my fertility doctor for like the first 9 or 10 weeks, however long you stay with fertility before you like graduate to a real
Mm-hmm.
OB. So we both were at the OB for a little, or at the fertility doctor for a little while, and then and so like we were 4 weeks apart. So all of our checkups like coincided with each other since
Mm-hmm.
we go every 4 weeks.
Right. So were you going together to the same place?
Yeah. So our
Okay.
doctor, it wasn't my normal OB, but she was like already in this network of hospitals. So she went to the one closer to my house. And then once I found out I was pregnant, I just started going to that doctor too. So we could go to
Mm-hmm.
the same doctor. So we like went to all of our appointments together. We just did
Wow.
them at the same time.
So I'm
Um,
sure, can I ask too? I'm sure you were maybe a little nervous too, right? Like having had so many losses before.
Yeah.
Was
Oh,
it?
I was super nervous. Like they actually, when I called to tell them that I was pregnant, they had me come in and do the beta test, like the blood test.
Mm-hmm.
So I was super nervous. Like I wanted my numbers to be high or whatever. And they called me the next day and they were like, or they called me that day and they were like, your number, I don't even remember what it is now, but I knew from my previous loss that it was not a good number. And I was devastated. I was like, why would this happen to me? Like, why would I get pregnant randomly out of nowhere on my own and then it not work out? And then
Mm-hmm.
like the next day, the nurse called and she was like, I was like bawling my eyes out and she was like, we weren't on the same page. Like she thought I was crying because I was pregnant with a second baby. And
Mm-hmm.
I was crying because I thought I was losing the pregnancy. And she was like, she was like, why are you so upset? And I was like, and I told her and she was like, I was calling to set up an ultrasound because your number was so high.
Oh my God.
And they had accidentally told me instead of or the HCG number. They gave me the progesterone number, which is like, yeah. So like my number, I thought it was like 51 or something, and it was really like 21,000 or something.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So
Whoops.
so I already had a scare, and I was like, she's like, if you want to come in right now and do an ultrasound, you can. Like, I'm so sorry. I don't know how that happened. I feel so bad. And so I like rolled out of bed. I didn't get out of bed for like 2 days because I thought I was miscarrying. And so I went in there. I was like, I haven't showered in 2 days, but I'm coming right now.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, okay. So when we went, and so then I went, and they were like, it's really early still, like there might not be a heartbeat, so don't like worry, but there might be. And then when I went, there was a heartbeat, and so we were all like cheering, and it was honestly going from like the worst day of my life to the best day of my life in 1 hour. It was nuts.
I saw on your Instagram you guys had champagne the day you found out and all that stuff.
We had champagne.
Yes.
I had like one little sip because I was like, I drank the whole time we were in Florida. I'm not like having any more alcohol with this fetus. But
oh my God, it's so amazing. So tell me about the births. Okay. So your son, the first one is Sam, right?
Yes.
Okay. And what happened with that birth? Did everything go out okay?
Yeah, everything with both babies like was great. And they both got induced like 6 days early. And she chose not to have an epidural. So she is like a superhero. I don't know how she did that.
Were you in the room with her?
Yeah. So we were in the room. We had a room right next to her, so that when the baby was born, like we could take him into our own room and spend time with him and let her like recover and stuff.
Wait, this is a weird question, and sorry if it's like sounds really dumb, but did you ever think like, oh, maybe we should induce at the same time? Or has anybody ever, I'm sure somebody's asked you that before.
I had thought that. I was like,
I mean, you want them in there cooking as long as possible, right?
Yes. So yeah. But I was kind of like, well, if Sam went 2 weeks late and Charlie went 2 weeks early, they could be on the same day.
Right. I mean, not that it matters at all. You just want them to be healthy, but I was just curious.
I definitely thought about that. And then also like, they didn't want me to breastfeed Sam because it could have had Charlie come early too.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So the doctors weren't excited about the early arrival. They wouldn't have let me do that. But
that makes sense. That's the responsible thing. I was just
I know. I was the same way.
Yeah. And I was just curious.
She like, we kind of always had planned on maybe inducing him a week early for her. And then as soon as I got pregnant, she was like, you're going to make me wait the whole time, aren't you? And I was like, yeah. But anyways, so she was like progressing really quickly after she was induced. And my husband was hanging out in our room while she was laboring, and I was with her the whole time. Like, I wanted to support her, but also like, I just felt terrible that she was like, I mean, I felt like she was dying, and it was so painful, I'm sure. And so I just like wanted to like be there and do like anything she needed me to do, like at all.
Did she just never use epidurals, or was it?
No, she always had used epidurals actually, but one of her babies had come too quickly for her to get one once.
Okay.
And she said it was like her best recovery she ever had. So she like wanted to try again. And she tried to not use an epidural with her most recent baby she had, but she ended up asking for it.
Okay.
So she actually started asking for it again with Sam, but he was just like, it was too late.
Too far along. Okay.
Yeah. And so they were like, you might want to go like let your husband know that he's probably coming. He was like 7 centimeters or something. And so I was like, okay. I went next door. I was like using the bathroom, and then I hear all this yelling outside, and they're like, get the parents, hurry, hurry, or whatever. And I was like, that can't be for us. And like, I went out there, and they're like pulling my husband out of the room. And so I like am running after him, and we got into the room next door. And then Sam came out literally like 30 seconds later. Like he just was coming out. Like between being 7 centimeters and him coming out was probably like 5 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah. So he came out really fast. They actually just pulled in like a GP that was walking like by the room to deliver him because the OB didn't have time to get there.
Wow. They're like, hey, kid, come get in here.
Pretty much. And like, so basically the nurses delivered him because he was
Wow.
like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Nurses are superheroes anyway.
Yeah. Oh my God. They were like, they had the whole thing under control.
Yeah.
But so then I cut the cord and it was really like amazing and scary and crazy.
Wow.
And then they like cleaned him off. And then we went to our own room, and like my parents and sister and Matt's parents and grandma were in the room waiting for us. They were actually like listening outside the room. And so they all got to see him, and like everybody held him for like a minute or two. And then Matt and I got to do like skin to skin with him for like 2 hours by ourselves.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it was like so perfect. And he was so cute. And well, I think he looks like me now, but he looked exactly like my husband when he popped out. So,
okay. So did the other baby inside of you have any, like, did you feel movement, or like, I'm sure you wanted to put Sam on your belly so they could like bond?
Yeah. At that point, because I only had a month left, he was like moving all day, every day.
He's like, I'll be there soon, brother.
Yeah, it was pretty weird.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was cool. And then, so we brought him home, and that month was like, everybody's like, how were you 9 months pregnant with a newborn? And like,
I'm sure the people that didn't know you are like, what's happening here? Right? How many times did you have to explain?
Yeah, a lot, because if I took him anywhere, like people were like, you look pregnant still. Like nobody said that to me, obviously, but like,
right.
I didn't
come up with like a party line that you would just like tell everybody like the same thing, like just like, I know I am pregnant. Like, did you?
Yeah, pretty much. Okay. Yeah. We obviously didn't leave the house a lot during that time, but I did a couple times, and like the ladies at the nail place were really confused.
Okay. So then what happened with your labor?
So mine I was like really, really scared, even though I had maybe that's why I was really, really scared, because the only labor I had ever seen was an unmedicated birth. And, but I got the epidural like the second that I could. And my labor like wasn't bad at all. I was pushing for 4 hours, but it was because every time I pushed, his heart rate would go down. So they thought maybe the cord was wrapped around his neck. And so they took me off the Pitocin, and just so that I could have more time in between each contraction, just to like let him recover in between my pushing. And so I was really only pushing like 3 or 4 times an hour, which really sucked. And so when he finally did come out, he was just squeezing the cord with his hand. He like had the cord in his hand.
Oh, wow.
And also like a weird thing that happened was like his head came out, and I couldn't push for like another 7 minutes. I had to wait for my contraction to come. So I was just kind of sitting there like, get him out of me. It was the weirdest thing. The doctor was like, look, he has hair. And I was like, oh my God, I don't care.
Yes. You're like, yeah. Let's go.
Yeah, it was really weird. But then he came out, and he was like, looked exactly like Sam. It was so weird.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And everything was good. He was just healthy and adorable. And my like recovery was really easy and good. And now here we are.
So are you, if you don't mind, in terms of the breastfeeding, I know you weren't able to do Sam at first. Did you pick up with both of them, or did you not do it at all? Or did you do it with just Charlie? Or
yeah. So I had decided that Sam was like on a good kind of routine, and he was eating a ton already for just being 4 weeks old. And so I decided just to keep him on the formula. And I actually had a breast milk donor for him. So he had like half breast milk, half formula for a while.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And then I tried to breastfeed Charlie in the hospital. Like I breastfed him. And then when I got home, it was just too hard. So I pumped for him for a couple of weeks. And then now they're just both on formula.
Okay. So which one, your Instagram is Bean and Biscuit. So which one's Bean and which one's Biscuit?
So Sam actually is Biscuit.
Okay.
And they were just like their nicknames before they had real names. I think
love it.
my mother-in-law, like when she saw the first ultrasound of Sam, she was just like, oh my goodness, he's such a cute little biscuit.
So how are things going?
They're going really good. It was, kind of hard to be by myself with them for a while, but now we're good. My like biggest priority was to get them like synced up onto the same schedule. And so now that's good, we're just rocking and rolling over here.
What a great story. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
I'm sorry that you went through all of everything that you went through, but it's so amazing that you ended up with these two little guys and they're just so beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah. I still can't believe like that was me that like did all that. And I still don't feel like, I don't know. I don't feel like I'm like a strong enough person to do all that, but I did.
Yeah, you are. And I have to say, one of your posts that made me laugh when I saw it earlier this month was that you put them in the double stroller and you said something like, they look like they're on a roller coaster. And like, you couldn't stop laughing. That made me laugh.
They did.
It's like one's a little bit higher than the other one.
Yeah. And they were like holding on for dear life. It was really
and I was like, she's so cute. I loved it. So I'm glad that you're enjoying them. And I'm so happy that they're healthy and that you are too. So
I know, me too. I pretty much got twins, but only had to carry one. And they're going to be best friends. Like, I'm so happy they're both boys and they can just like be little best friends.
Right.
And they're finally starting to like notice each other and reach for each other and laugh at each other and stuff. And it's just the cutest thing ever.
Yeah. It's so great when they're old enough to hear what you went through, what your whole family went through to have them. They're going to be like, what?
I know. I hope they think it's like the coolest thing ever.
Hey again, guys. Thank you so much for listening to my conversation with Maggie. I still can't believe how it all shook out. What an awesome, incredible, and crazy story. So thank you, Maggie, for sharing that with us today. I also want to remind you guys to please, if you have a moment, go over to Instagram and follow @FertilityRally. That's where you're going to find all the latest info for the rally that Blair, Nelson, and I are throwing in Brooklyn in October. So it's going to be a really fun event. I'd love for you guys to all be there if you can, and more info coming soon. All right, thanks. Talk to you next time.